24. Stop buying dish soap. This $3 Amish recipe lasts 14 months and cleans better than Dawn. The sink is still warm. Steam curling up slow in the half light. You're holding a plate that never quite feels clean. That faint slickness that won't wash off no matter how long you rinse, and there it is again. That almost empty bottle of dish soap tipping on the counter. Most families don't notice how fast it disappears. 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if you're careful. I used to think that was normal, just part of running a kitchen. But one winter evening, I watched something different in a neighbor's home. No store bottle, no plastic clutter under the sink. Just a small jar sitting quiet near the window. And what he said about it didn't make sense at first. A $3 mix. That outlasts everything I had ever bought. And that's where the question starts to form. Not just about soap, but about everything we were told to keep replacing. Before we go any further, I'd like to hear something simple from you. Not advice, not expertise, just memory. If you grew up around someone who never wasted anything in the kitchen, a mother, a grandfather, a neighbor who kept things running too long in the best way, share that below. There's something about those old habits that still matters today. And the people who remember them tend to recognize each other quickly. If you're the kind of person who still trusts those quieter ways of doing things, you'll understand what comes next. The kitchen light hums low over a quiet sink. Dirty water sits still in the basin, dark and tired. A single plate leans against the steel like it's given up halfway through being clean. Your hand reaches for the soap again without thinking. Same motion, same bottle, same habit. It feels normal until you really notice it. That bottle empties faster than anything else in the house. Faster than bread, faster than milk, faster than common sense would suggest. 2 weeks, maybe 3 if you stretch it. Then it's gone again. And nobody questions it. You just add it to the list. Groceries, bills, soap, repeat. But something about that rhythm starts to feel off when you sit with it long enough. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady waste. Like a slow drip you stop hearing after a while. The first time I really noticed it, I was standing in my own kitchen late at night. Water still warm. Dish towel over my shoulder. The bottle was nearly empty again, tilted slightly like it had lost balance. And I remember thinking, this can't be the most efficient way people have ever cleaned dishes. Not in a world where every penny matters more than it used to. The strange part is, we don't even see it as a problem, it's just accepted. Like light bulbs burning out, or tires wearing down, you replace it, that's the rule. But rules like that don't come from nature. They come from somewhere else. I didn't understand that yet, not fully, until I visited a man who kept his kitchen like it belonged to another time, entirely. No clutter under the sink, no rows of plastic bottles, just one small jar sitting near the back of the counter. I asked him about it without thinking much of it. Casual question, nothing serious. He looked at me for a long moment before answering, like he was deciding how much truth I was ready for. Then he said something simple. He said he hadn't bought dish soap in years. Years. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, because it didn't fit anything I knew, but he didn't laugh. He just turned back to the sink and kept washing a pan with slow, steady hands. And what I noticed then was how clean everything already was. No grease film, no leftover slickness, just plain water and patience, doing what I thought only store bottles could do. That was the first crack in the assumption. Because if one kitchen can run without constant refills, then the question becomes uncomfortable fast. Why doesn't mine? Why does everything in modern life feel like it's designed to run out on schedule? Even soap, especially soap. There's a kind of quiet logic older households seem to follow, not written down, not advertised, just remembered. Use less, make it last. Don't let small things control your time. And somewhere along the way, that logic got replaced. Not by force, by convenience. By the promise that you never had to think about it again. Just buy more, always buy more. I didn't see it as strange until I saw the other way sitting on a kitchen counter in a simple glass jar. And that's when he told me there was a mix. Something so basic it almost felt like a joke at first. $3 worth of ingredients. That was the number he said. $3. And yet it didn't just clean dishes. It changed how often you reached for anything at all. I didn't believe him, not yet. But I couldn't stop thinking about that jar. Because if he was right, then the bottle under my own sink wasn't just running out fast. It was designed to. It was designed to. That thought lingered longer than I expected. Not loud, not sharp, just steady like a tool left on a counter after use. Because once you hear something like that, you start noticing other places it might be true. The way paper towels disappear faster than cloth ever did. The way light bulbs used to last years, not seasons. The way everything under a kitchen sink now comes in plastic bottles that feel temporary by design. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Just unsettled. And that's usually how it starts. Not with outrage. With recognition. The man with the jar didn't talk like someone making a point. He talked like someone repeating something learned the hard way. He said most cleaning didn't need to be complicated. It just needed consistency and the right balance of simple materials. No mystery, no secret formula. Just what was already sitting in most rural kitchens long before branding became the main ingredient. He pulled the jar closer that day. Not to impress me, just to use it. Inside wasn't anything dramatic. No color, no perfume cloud, no foam mountain like the store bottles advertise. Just a thick, quiet mixture that looked almost plain enough to ignore, and yet it cut through grease like it had patience built into it. That was the strange part. Not speed, not flash, just steady work. He said something I didn't forget. That most modern soap isn't stronger because it needs to be, it's stronger because it has to justify how fast it disappears. I didn't argue. I just listened, because that idea sticks in the mind longer than facts do. That night, I kept thinking about the difference between a product that lasts and a product that moves. One sits in your home quietly. The other keeps asking to be replaced, and somewhere in that difference, the whole system becomes visible, not as a conspiracy, not as a villain with a face, more like a pattern you finally notice after years of living inside it. The next part of the conversation was simpler. Ingredients, not in exact measurements, not like a formula from a lab, more like a memory being passed along in pieces. He mentioned a basic soap base, something you could grate or dissolve. He mentioned washing soda for strength, and warm water to bring it all together into something usable instead of harsh. 3 things. That was it, nothing exotic, nothing hidden, and yet, when combined the right way, it changed how long a small amount could stretch through daily life. Not because it was magical, but because it wasn't diluted into constant overuse like most commercial bottles are. He showed me something else too. How little you actually need per sink, a fingertip amount, not a squeeze, not a pour. Just enough to break surface tension and lift grease without wasting half the bottle in one go. That was hard to accept at first, because most of us were trained in the opposite direction. More soap equals cleaner. More foam equals better. More scent equals fresher. But none of those rules come from necessity. They come from habit, and habits can be expensive without ever looking like it on a receipt. I asked him directly how something so simple could last so long. Months, he said, sometimes longer depending on use. Not because it grows or multiplies, but because people stop overusing it once they make it themselves. That was the part nobody talks about. It's not just the mixture that stretches time, it's the behavior change that comes with it. When you make something with your own hands, you don't waste it the same way, you don't pour it out of habit, you measure it with memory instead of impulse, and that alone changes everything. Still, I want to be honest about something here. Isn't a perfect replacement for every store product in every situation. It doesn't always foam the same way. It doesn't always smell like what commercials have trained people to expect. And in certain heavy cleaning jobs, you'll still adjust how you use it. That matters. Because anything that claims to solve everything usually solves nothing well. But for everyday dishes, for normal kitchen use, for the steady rhythm of home life, it holds its ground in a way that surprised me more than once. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized the real shift wasn't in the ingredients at all. It was in the assumption underneath them. That cleaning has to come packaged. That convenience must be refilled. That time is something you buy back in small plastic bottles every few weeks. Once that idea starts to crack, even slightly, the rest of the kitchen looks different. The sink starts to look different. Not because it changes, because you do. That's what surprised me most. Not the mixture itself, not the jar, not even the cost. It was the quiet shift in how you move through your own kitchen when you stop assuming everything has to be replaced on schedule. You start noticing how much you are pouring without thinking. A full squeeze for a single pan, another for something that wasn't even that dirty. Just habit, muscle memory, and nobody ever questions muscle memory until it costs you more than it should. That man with the jar didn't treat it like a discovery. He treated it like normal life that had been remembered again. He washed dishes slowly, not because it was harder, but because there was no reason to rush through something that wasn't draining money every time your hand moved. That detail stayed with me. The slowness, not wasteful slowness, intentional slowness, like time itself wasn't being fed into a machine anymore. I tried it later in my own sink, same pan, same grease, same water, but this time I used what he showed me, just a small amount, barely anything. And I waited for it to fail. That's the honest truth. I expected it to fail, but it didn't. It broke the grease just fine. Not with dramatic foam or strong scent, just steady lifting, like the dirt finally letting go because it wasn't being attacked, just persuaded. And that difference matters more than people realize, because most cleaning products teach you to rely on force. More bubbles, more chemicals, more aggression against the mess. But older methods, at least the ones I've seen still living in small pockets of rural homes, don't work like that. They work like patience, like consistency, like not overdoing what doesn't need to be overdone. Now, I want to be clear about something before this goes too far. This isn't about throwing out everything modern or pretending the past was perfect. There are reasons convenience became normal. Busy lives, bigger homes, less time in the kitchen than before, that part is real. But what gets lost in that trade is awareness of scale. How much you actually need versus how much you're encouraged to use. And once you start seeing that gap, it shows up everywhere. Not just soap. Everything under the sink starts to look a little heavier than it needs to be. The real reason this simple jar can stretch so long isn't because it's magic or secret knowledge. It's because it removes the constant push to overuse. It puts the control back into your hand instead of the bottle's design. And that alone changes the math of a kitchen. $3 becomes something else when it isn't being emptied every 2 weeks. It becomes a small supply you actually manage, not replace. There's a kind of quiet dignity in that, not loud pride, not some dramatic lifestyle shift, just the feeling that your home isn't constantly asking you to restock it. A neighbor once told me something similar without even talking about soap. He said the older he got, the more he respected anything that didn't ask him for attention every few days. Tools, habits, even food storage, things that just stayed useful. That idea circles back here, quietly, because once you experience it in something as ordinary as dish soap, it becomes harder to ignore elsewhere. You start asking smaller questions that lead to bigger ones. Why do some things disappear so fast? Why do others last longer than expected? And who benefits when the answer is always just buy more, not in an angry way? More like a man standing in his kitchen late at night, realizing the sink has been teaching something for years without ever speaking. There's still more to this, though, because the real shift isn't just how long the mix lasts. It's what happens when you stop thinking of every bottle in your house as temporary.